The trash bag hit the wet pavement with a dull thud. I stared at it, not quite believing what was happening. Don't get your tears on the designer rug, Tessa. It's worth more than your entire wardrobe. Marcus stood in the doorway of our penthouse, his face cold and unfamiliar. 7 years of marriage, and this was how it ended. With a single garbage bag containing my clothes and a husband who looked at me like I was dirt on his expensive Italian shoes. Rain soaked through my shirt as I bent to pick up the bag. From the balcony above I heard laughter. Marcus's assistant, the one he'd hired 3 months ago, appeared beside him. Her hand rested on his shoulder like she owned him. Maybe she did now. "Goodbye, Tessa," Marcus called down, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "Try not to embarrass yourself by coming back." The door slammed. The lock clicked. And just like that I was homeless. My name is Tessa Sterling, and 1 hour ago I was somebody's wife. Now I was standing outside a bank branch, shivering in wet clothes, trying to figure out how to survive the night. I needed cash for a motel room. Just $50 to get through until I could think straight. I pushed through the glass doors and approached the ATM. My debit card slid in smoothly. I punched in my PIN. Card declined. Insufficient funds. My stomach dropped. Marcus had cleaned out our joint account. Of course he had. He'd planned this perfectly. I felt the weight of Dad's old card in my wallet. The black metal one he'd given me on his deathbed 3 years ago. "Only use this when the world tries to make you small," he'd whispered. I'd thought it was just a sentimental gesture from a dying man. But I was desperate now. I walked to the teller window and handed her the card. "I'd like to withdraw $50, please." She swiped it. Then her face went pale. Every computer screen in the branch turned bright red. I thought back to the day Dad gave me that card. He'd been lying in his hospital bed, looking so small and frail. My father had been a college professor his whole life. We'd lived in a modest house with creaky floors and a leaking roof. He wore jackets with patched elbows and drove a car that was older than me. "Tessa, sweetheart," he'd said, pressing the heavy black card into my palm. "This is for emergencies only. When the world tries to make you small, when someone tries to take away your worth, use this. Not before." I'd nodded, confused but not wanting to upset him. "What is it, Dad?" "Your birthright," he'd whispered. Then he'd closed his eyes and never opened them again. I'd kept the card in my wallet for 3 years, thinking it was probably expired or maybe had $50 on it at most. A final gift from a father who had nothing but love to give. How wrong I'd been. The branch manager came running out from his office, his face covered in sweat. He was a heavy man in an expensive suit, and he was actually bowing. "Me. Ms. Sterling. Miss Sterling, please come with me immediately. I'm so sorry for the wait. We've been waiting for you for 20 years. 20 years. I was only 31. I followed him in a daze as he practically dragged me to a private suite in the back of the bank. Leather chairs. Crystal water glasses. Artwork on the walls. "What's happening?" I asked, my voice shaking. He pulled out a thick folder with my name embossed on it in gold letters. "The Sovereign account. Your father established it when you were 11 years old. Ms. Sterling, you're not just a client. You own a founding share of this bank itself. You're one of our most protected clients." He paused, looking at me with something like awe. "You're not just rich, Ms. Sterling. You are the bank." My legs gave out. I sat down hard in one of those leather chairs. Meanwhile, Marcus was having a very different kind of afternoon. He stood in the jewelry store, his assistant clinging to his arm like a decorative accessory. "That one," he said, pointing to a massive diamond ring. "The 5-carat one. Nothing but the best for my bride-to-be." The salesperson smiled and rang up the purchase. Marcus handed over our joint credit card with a flourish. He'd used this card 1,000 times. It had a $50,000 limit. Machine beep. "Declined, sir." Marcus frowned. "Try it again. Must be a technical glitch." The salesperson swiped it twice more. Same result. "I'm sorry, sir. Do you have another form of payment? His assistant's smile faltered slightly. Marcus felt sweat prickle at his temples. This is ridiculous. I'll call the bank. But deep down, a tiny seed of worry had been planted. Something was wrong. He just didn't know yet that his entire world was about to collapse. My phone rang while I was still sitting in the bank's private suite. Beatrice, Marcus's mother. I should have let it go to voicemail, but some masochistic part of me answered. Tessa. I heard the wonderful news. Her voice was sugar-sweet poison. Marcus finally came to his senses. I stayed silent listening. I saw you outside that awful motel on 5th Street. My book club drove past. You looked absolutely pathetic dragging that trash bag. A leech who finally got what she deserved. She laughed, a high-pitched sound that made my skin crawl. 7 years you rode on my son's success. 7 years of playing housewife while he built an empire. Well, the ride's over, sweetheart. Don't even think about crawling back. We're having a party this weekend to celebrate Marcus's engagement. You're obviously not invited. I could have told her the truth right then. Could have explained that her son was about to lose everything. But I didn't. Thank you for calling, Beatrice, I said quietly. Then I hung up. The bank manager had sent for the city's top legal team. They arrived within an hour. 3 lawyers in sharp suits who treated me like I was made of glass and gold. Miss Sterling, we need to discuss asset protection, the lead lawyer said. Her name was Veronica, and she had the kind of eyes that missed nothing. Do you have any joint accounts? Joint properties? Any assets tied to your husband? I explained everything. Penthouse. The startup company we'd supposedly built together. Our bank accounts. Veronica's smile was sharp as a knife. We'll freeze everything that has your name on it. Immediately. And I suggest we look into acquiring any debts or assets connected to your husband's business. If he wants to play games, let's make sure we win. I thought about Marcus's face when he'd thrown me out. The contempt in his eyes. Do it, I said. All of it. Within 3 hours, I'd hired the best legal and PR team money could buy. I didn't buy jewelry. I bought Marcus's debts. Every single one. 2 days later I walked into Bordeaux Boutique, the most expensive clothing store in the city. I'd spent the morning being transformed. New hair. Professional makeup. A designer suit that cost more than my old car. I looked like money now. Like power. I looked like someone Marcus would notice. He was there, just like I'd known he would be. The assistant clung to his arm while they tried to impress some socialite I recognized from the society pages. We'll take everything in the spring collection, the socialite was saying. I approached the owner, a thin woman with perfect posture. I'd like to buy everything else. The entire week's inventory. For personal use. Her eyes widened. Everything. Everything. Whatever it costs. She practically ran to start processing the order. Within minutes, a staff member approached Marcus's group. I'm so sorry, but we need to ask you to leave. We've had a significant private purchase and need to close for inventory. Marcus turned, annoyed. His eyes passed right over me at first. Then he looked again. Recognition dawned slowly, followed by confusion. Tessa smiled. Didn't say a word. Just walked past him like he was invisible. Veronica called me that evening with news that made my blood run cold. Tessa, you need to sit down for this. I was already sitting in my new hotel suite, but I gripped the chair arms anyway. We've been going through the company records. The startup you and Marcus supposedly built together. He's been embezzling for 3 years. Hundreds of thousands of dollars, moved through shell companies and offshore accounts. My breath caught. He was planning this. Planning to leave you with nothing while he walked away with everything. The assistant, the new apartment he'd been touring last month, the separate bank account. This wasn't a sudden decision. This was a long-term strategy. I thought about all those late nights he'd said he was working. All those business trips. The way he'd insisted I quit my job to support his career. He hadn't just betrayed me with another woman. He'd been systematically destroying my financial independence for years. How much did he take? At least 400,000. Possibly more. Closed my eyes. Get me everything. Every transaction. Every forged signature. Everything. Veronica's team uncovered something else. Something that made me laugh despite everything. The assistant, the woman Marcus was so proud to show off, wasn't who she claimed to be. Her real name was Amanda Cross, and she worked for Titan Industries, Marcus's biggest competitor. She'd been planted in his company 6 months ago to steal trade secrets and client lists. Every intimate moment, every business secret Marcus had whispered to her, had been recorded and sent directly to his rivals. Marcus was being played exactly the way he'd played me. The thought should have made me happy, but instead I felt something close to pity. Almost. Should we warn him? Veronica asked. I thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. No. Let him learn the hard way. You're sure? This could destroy his business entirely. I'm sure. After all, he'd had no problem destroying mine. Turnabout was fair play. And I was just getting started. Beatrice's party was that Saturday. A celebration of Marcus's success and his new engagement to a corporate spy, though she didn't know that last part. I hadn't been invited, obviously. But I didn't need an invitation. The party was being held at the Meridian Club, the most exclusive venue in the city. What Beatrice didn't know was that the Meridian Club was owned by Sterling Holdings, a company my father had established decades ago. Company I now controlled. I arrived at 9 o'clock, dressed in a gown that cost more than Beatrice's car. The doorman recognized me immediately from the briefing I'd sent ahead. Ms. Sterling. We're honored. Inside I could hear the party in full swing. Laughter, clinking glasses, congratulations being thrown around like confetti. I walked to the main ballroom and stood in the shadows, watching. There was Marcus, holding court at the center of attention. There was Beatrice, preening in her best dress. There was the assistant smiling that fake smile. They raised their glasses in a toast. To Tessa, Marcus said, his voice dripping with mockery. For finally knowing her place. They laughed. All of them. I nodded to the venue manager. Every light in the building went out. The screams were satisfying. When the emergency lights came on, I was already gone, but the message had been delivered. The party was over. Monday morning, Marcus received an eviction notice at the penthouse. I heard about it from Veronica, who'd made sure to be there when the papers were served. He laughed, she told me over coffee. Actually laughed. Said there must be some mistake because he owns the place. And then, Veronica grinned. Then his lawyer explained that the penthouse was leased through Sterling Properties, a shell company that had recently been acquired. By you. I sipped my coffee. Tasted like victory. How long does he have? 30 days. Standard eviction period. Make it 15. Tessa, I like your style. The best part. Marcus still didn't know it was me. He thought he was being targeted by random investors, unlucky business deals, cosmic karma. He had no idea that every door closing in his face was being shut by my hand. That knowledge was its own kind of power. Marcus finally called me on Wednesday. His number had been blocked, but he used the assistant's phone. I almost didn't answer, but I wanted to hear this. What did you do? He screamed. No hello. No preamble. Just rage. Marcus. Is that you? I kept my voice innocent, confused. Don't play games with me, Tessa. Penthouse. The credit cards. The frozen accounts. I know you're behind this somehow. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just a leech, remember? Parasite who rode your success. How could I possibly have the power to affect your life? The silence on the other end was thick. I'll destroy you, he finally said. You'll regret this. No, Marcus. I'm just following your advice. I'm protecting my rugs. After all, they're worth more than some people's entire wardrobes. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking, but not from fear. From satisfaction. For the first time since he'd thrown me out, I'd stood up to him. And I hadn't apologized. Not even once. Veronica found the smoking gun on Friday. The original founder's agreement for Marcus's startup company. I'd forgotten about it, honestly. We'd drafted it 7 years ago when the company was just an idea scribbled on a napkin. But there it was, in black and white. My name on the intellectual property. Every algorithm, every software design, every innovation that made the company valuable. I owned half of it. Legally. Irrevocably. He can't sign any deals without your signature, Veronica explained. And he's got a big one coming up. Titan Industries wants to acquire his client list for $3 million. The contract signing is scheduled for next Tuesday. I remembered the assistant, Amanda, working for Titan. They were buying the information they'd already stolen, just to make it legal. Marcus was about to sell his company's secrets without knowing they'd already been copied. What happens if I don't sign? The deal falls through. Marcus defaults on his business loans. Everything collapses. Picked up my pen. Set up a meeting. Tell him Investor X wants to discuss terms. You're going to reveal yourself. Oh yes. I want to see his face. The boardroom was exactly as cold and corporate as I'd requested. 6 lawyers sat along the walls like stone-faced judges. I sat at the head of the table, perfectly calm. Marcus arrived exactly on time carrying flowers. Cheap ones. Grocery store roses that were already wilting. He'd dressed in his best suit, the one he wore for important investors. His expression was humble, almost desperate. "Thank you for meeting with me," he said to the room in general. "I know we can work out a deal that benefits everyone." One of the lawyers gestured to the chair across from me. Marcus sat down. He still hadn't really looked at me. "Mr. Sterling, we've reviewed your proposal," I said. My voice was calm, professional. Marcus's head snapped up. His face went through several expressions at once. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, horror. "Tessa." The flowers fell from his hand. "Surprise," I said softly. "Though I suppose I should say, nice to meet you, Investor X." He tried to stand. His legs didn't seem to work properly. He sank back into the chair, his mouth opening and closing like a fish. The frozen look on his face was everything I'd hoped for. "What? How? How am I Investor X? How do I own your debts? How do I have the power to approve or deny your deals?" I leaned forward. "You threw out the wrong woman, Marcus." Beatrice showed up at my new office building the next day. Security called to ask if I'd see her. I should have said no. But curiosity got the better of me. She was shown into my office, and I barely recognized her. The confident, cruel woman who'd called to mock me was gone. In her place was someone smaller, older, desperate. "Tessa, please. We need to talk about family." "Family?" I raised an eyebrow. "Is that what we are?" "I know I said some things. You called me a leech. Parasite. You said I deserved to be homeless." Her face flushed. I was upset. I didn't mean. I opened my laptop and turned it toward her. Then I played the voicemails. All of them. The ones she'd left the week after Marcus kicked me out. Each one nastier than the last. "You're a gold-digging tramp. My son is better off without you. I hope you end up in the gutter where you belong." By the third message, Beatrice was crying. "I was angry. Marcus said you'd betrayed him. And you believed him without question. Without even calling to hear my side. Close the laptop. This meeting is over. Tessa, please." I pressed the button for security. "Please escort Ms. Sterling out. She's not welcome here." The door closed on her protests. The scandal broke on Monday morning. Someone, anonymously of course, had sent evidence of Marcus's embezzlement to every member of his company's board of directors. Bank statements, forged documents, email records, everything laid out in meticulous detail. His perfect reputation began to crumble in real time. The business news sites picked it up first. Tech startup CEO under investigation for fraud. Then the mainstream media. Marcus Sterling, from golden boy to criminal? His phone calls to me became more frequent, more desperate. I blocked every number. The assistant Amanda tried to reach out too. I almost admired her persistence. She sent emails claiming she'd been deceived, that she loved Marcus truly, that she wanted to help him. I deleted them all without responding. She'd made her choice when she'd taken Titan's money to spy on him. The irony was beautiful. Marcus had betrayed me for a woman who was betraying him for profit. Sometimes karma didn't just come around. It arrived on a silver platter with a bow on top. Amanda disappeared on Wednesday. Just vanished into thin air. Marcus called me in a panic, using his mother's phone. I answered just to hear him fall apart. She took everything. My savings, the emergency fund, the advance from Titan. She's gone. His voice cracked. Tessa, I know we have history, but please. I need help. She left me with nothing but debts and a scandal. I let the silence stretch. Marcus, do you remember what you said when you threw me out? Tessa, you said I didn't fit the brand. You said I was worth less than your rug. You put my entire life in a trash bag and laughed while I stood in the rain. I was stupid. I was wrong. Please. You're right about one thing, I said. You are stupid. But being stupid isn't a crime. Embezzlement is. Fraud is. Those are the debts you'll have to pay. Not with my money. Hung up. Blocked that number too. Beatrice tried calling next. Then Marcus's brother, his business partner, even his college roommate. All blocked. I was done being his emergency fund. His safety net. His backup plan. He'd wanted me gone. Now he could live with that choice. Marcus's childhood home went up for auction the following week. He'd used it as collateral for one of his business loans, one of many desperate financial moves he'd made over the years. The house was modest but in a good neighborhood. It had been in his family for 3 generations. Beatrice was there, crying in the front row. Marcus sat beside her, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 2 weeks. I was there too, though they didn't see me. I'd sent my lawyer to bid on my behalf. The starting price was $200,000. Climbed quickly. 300. 400. Other investors dropped out at 500. My lawyer kept going. When the gavel fell, I'd paid $650,000 for a house worth maybe 400. Beatrice looked devastated. Marcus looked dead inside. Later that day, I announced what the property would become. Not a teardown for condos. Not a rental property. Shelter. Specifically, a shelter for women escaping financial abuse. The Sterling Foundation's first project. Marcus would never be able to drive past his childhood home without seeing what he'd become. Perfect. The divorce proceedings were almost anticlimactic. Marcus's lawyer, a nervous man who clearly knew his client was guilty of multiple crimes, tried his best. My client requests half of all marital assets, including the recently discovered sovereign account. The judge actually laughed. It wasn't a polite chuckle. It was a full, genuine laugh that echoed through the courtroom. Counselor, are you aware that the sovereign account is a premarital inheritance protected by ironclad trusts established over 20 years ago? The lawyer shuffled his papers. Your Honor, in the interest of fairness. Fairness? Veronica stood up. Your Honor, my client was thrown out of her home with a trash bag. She was subjected to identity theft, embezzlement, and abandonment. Her husband cleaned out their joint accounts before evicting her. And now he wants half of an inheritance he knew nothing about. The judge's expression hardened. The sovereign account is not marital property. Request denied. Furthermore, given the evidence of financial abuse, I'm awarding Ms. Sterling compensatory damages. Marcus's face went gray. The divorce was finalized in 40 minutes. I kept everything that was mine. He left with his debts and his crimes, as it should be. Marcus's brother Tyler tried to blackmail me the following week. He called from a blocked number, but my security team traced it immediately. I have photos, he said. Private ones. From your marriage. Unless you want them leaked to the press, you'll pay me $200,000. I didn't panic. Didn't threaten. Just said, send me samples. I need to verify you have what you claim. He sent 3 photos within an hour. They were from my honeymoon 7 years ago. Innocent pictures of me on the beach. Nothing scandalous at all. He was counting on me being embarrassed, desperate, afraid. He'd miscalculated badly. My security team had already identified Tyler's employer, a mid-level tech firm downtown. I had them compile a file. Tyler's history of petty crimes, his drug use in college, his gambling debts. Then I called his boss. This is Tessa Sterling. I wanted to make you aware of a security risk in your organization. By 5 o'clock, Tyler was fired. By 6, he was calling me begging for mercy. I didn't answer. Some lessons needed to be learned the hard way. The interview request came from Channel 7 News. They wanted to do a segment on financial independence and entrepreneurship. Almost said no. But then I thought about all the women like me. Women who'd been controlled, manipulated, made to feel small by people who claimed to love them. Said yes. The interview aired on Wednesday evening. I sat in a tasteful studio setting, looking calm and professional. Tell us about your journey, the host said. I told them about building a business from nothing. About recognizing the signs of financial abuse. About protecting your assets and knowing your worth. I never mentioned Marcus by name. I didn't have to. I used his business strategies as textbook examples of what not to do. Embezzlement, shell companies, financial manipulation. By the time the interview ended, anyone who knew Marcus would recognize the story. The next day my phone exploded with messages. Women thanking me, sharing their own stories, asking for advice. I'd struck a nerve. Marcus called too. Left a voicemail. You've destroyed me. His voice was hollow. Was it worth it? I didn't call back. But if I had, I would have said yes. The board of directors removed Marcus as CEO on Friday morning. The vote was unanimous. 9-0. They released a statement citing financial irregularities and loss of stakeholder confidence. His assistant position was terminated immediately. His office was cleared out by security. His company email was deactivated. Everything he'd built over 7 years, gone in a single morning. He had nowhere to go but Beatrice's tiny apartment. The penthouse was long gone, sold to cover debts. His car had been repossessed. His credit cards were all cancelled. The golden boy, the man who'd thrown me out like trash, was now living in his mother's spare bedroom. I knew all this because I made it my business to know. Not out of cruelty but out of caution. I needed to know where he was, what he was doing, whether he was a threat. So far he seemed too broken to be dangerous. But I wasn't taking chances. My security team kept tabs on him. My lawyers kept the restraining order ready just in case. I'd learned my lesson about underestimating people. Marcus showed up at my estate on a Tuesday afternoon. Security called immediately. Ms. Sterling, there's a Marcus Sterling at the gate. He's asking to speak with you. Claims it's urgent. I could have had him arrested for violating the restraining order. Should have, probably. But I wanted to see him. One last time. I met him at the gate, not inside. He looked terrible. Unshaven, wearing clothes that didn't fit right. Eyes red and exhausted. Tessa, please. I need to talk to you. You have 2 minutes. I was wrong. About everything. I see that now. Sorry. Truly, deeply sorry. He paused. I need a loan. Just $50,000. To get back on my feet. Start over. I'll pay you back, I swear. I looked at him. Really looked at him. This man had thrown me away like garbage. Had stolen from me. Had planned my poverty while sleeping beside me. And now he wanted my money. Do you remember what you said to me? Yes. About not fitting the brand. He flinched. I was stupid. You were right, I interrupted. I didn't fit your brand. Your brand was shallow, cruel, and temporary. My brand is different. My brand is owner, builder. Survivor. I stepped closer. And you, Marcus. You're just a liability. His face crumbled. Please. Goodbye, Marcus. Don't come back. I turned and walked away. He called after me, begging. I didn't look back. Security escorted him off the property. That was the last time I ever saw him. 6 months later, I sat in my father's old office. I'd had it restored exactly as it had been when he was alive. The worn desk, the overstuffed chair, the smell of old books and pipe tobacco. The black card sat on the desk in front of me, gleaming in the afternoon light. My father had been right. It wasn't just a credit card. It was a key to freedom, to power, to the life I deserved. I wasn't bitter about what happened with Marcus. How could I be? He'd freed me from a life of being small, of being controlled, of being less than I was. I picked up my pen and signed the final document of the day. Marcus's old penthouse was officially being donated to the Sterling Foundation. It would house victims of domestic violence, women and children who needed a safe place to start over, just like I had. The chapter was closed. Marcus was living in obscurity, working some entry-level job, trying to rebuild a reputation that would never recover. Beatrice had moved to another state, too ashamed to face the community that had once celebrated her son. And me. I was free. Finally, completely free. I looked at my father's photograph on the desk. Thank you, Dad, I whispered, for knowing I'd need this someday. Outside, the sun was setting over the city. My city now. A city where I'd built something real, something good, something that would outlast all the people who tried to make me small. Smiled. The future was mine. And it was going to be magnificent.